All right, well, we're going to go to an interview now about the coincidence of the fires that have been erupting around the country. But in the box next to me are visuals of President Cyril Ramaphosa inspecting roads in Limpopo ahead of his 6th State of the Nation address. While some may have been purely coincidental, it's undoubtedly strange to see so many incidents occurring at some of our country's most notable places of interest in such a short space of time. Well, since the destructive fire that engulfed the National Assembly on the 2nd of January this year, we've seen a suspect arrested for taking a hammer to the windows of the Constitutional Court, and other fires erupting at Waterkloof Air Force Base, the Komani Town Hall, the Justice Department in Cape Town, and now St. George's Cathedral too. It's important to state that there's no definitive proof these incidents are connected or deliberate, but one can't argue with the fact that their timing does raise real suspicions, and in some of the cases, the homeless are being linked. Is that arbitrary? Is it a case of general neglect? Well, to answer this, we have criminologist Guy Lamb joining us live. Guy, thanks for joining us. I mean, it's a lot of really emblematic institutions in a short space of time. In several of the incidents, the accused who are picked up are either homeless or declared mentally unfit to stand trial. Are they scapegoats? Is there a bigger picture here going on, such as a different take on the July insurrection?
I mean, what we're seeing here is something that doesn't seem to, it's too many incidences for it to be coincidental. There clearly seems to be some form of strategy behind it, especially since you're seeing key government buildings and key institutions and key national points being targeted. Also those of symbolic value, such as St. George's Cathedral, such as Parliament, not only representing the state of democracy, but also representing kind of the importance of religion within the South African state and that kind of history that goes with it. So there seems to be kind of almost a sinister agenda behind this. I mean, that's one thing to look at when we're seeing all these particular incidences, and they're not just sort of random houses or random pieces of land. They're specific types of institutions and specific types of buildings. I mean, we may have had a plan, and there's a plan to target certain buildings to use a kind of guerrilla type tactic, and there may have also been sort of copycats where, because we're seeing this happening with some buildings, others have jumped on the bandwagon and decide to pursue this as well, because you often see this with arsonists operating in sort of felt areas and sort of reserve areas, and we've seen that certainly in the city of Cape Town around the sort of the Table Mountain National Park. We see fires popping up in one area and then starting in other areas, and it's groups of arsonists who are doing it who like fire and like to play with fire and see the destruction, where these kind of incidents that we've seen, seem to be part of a wider strategy, but it's not clear who's behind it. We don't have enough evidence about it, but there's a lot of kind of question marks around that this doesn't seem to be coincidental.
What the panel report did, what that was released yesterday, did expose is just how lacking our intelligence services and intelligence is at the moment. If there was, for instance, a marked campaign to set several emblematic buildings alight, for instance, would it serve government to expose this or keep it under the radar?
I mean, ultimately, it would be important for government to do it, to expose it, unless, of course, there's sensitive investigations underway, because you want to be able to try and secure, a kind of a case against certain individuals and have enough evidence to then take that to court and secure a conviction, so you can actually demonstrate that the rule of law works within South Africa. So, I mean, that's the one consideration why maybe action has not been taken now. But I think what the panel of experts report brought out is that certainly the intelligence services have been hollowed out. There's been some movement to try and identify who the ringleaders are, but we haven't seen any kind of legal action taken against them, any action within the courts. But there might be sensitive investigations ongoing and this process of collecting enough evidence so that the state can take action. But of course, there may be elements still within the security structures that don't want, kind of undermining investigations, or there might just be a lack of capacity, as the high-level panel report did indicate, the most recent report, and the one in 2018 that was led by Sydney Mufamadi. So there's this combination of issues.
Should there be a motivated campaign to set fire to certain buildings or attack the Constitutional Court, which is really, as you say, a pinnacle of democracy in this country, the building itself? would that be a destabilizing, or have a destabilizing effect on South Africans and make them feel slightly unnerved that key state points are not secure?
Absolutely. I mean, many South Africans, especially if you were living in KwaZulu-Natal or parts of Gauteng that were affected by this, you see these other fires taking place and your sort of sense of safety and security does get further shaken. I mean, it also leads to kind of a sense of jadedness within the state around, why are we bothering to try and work with government to try and kind of improve the situation within South Africa when you're sort of seeing these important, kind of physical representations of South African democracy, number one, not being taken care of sufficiently, because I mean that's been a key issue that's come out of here, where you've seen them being targeted for arson or break-ins and thefts, and the protection of those key points clearly wasn't sufficient. And so that kind of adds to the sort of sense of frustration as well. And it's kind of can also build to, you can see individuals getting emboldened. Because what we saw with the July riots was the kind of weaponization of kind of poverty and hunger in many areas. And what we're seeing here is sort of potentially, if there is this kind of conspiracy going on around a sort of recruitment of kind of very marginalized people to kind of engage in these kind of acts and that is particularly disturbing.
All right, thank you so much. That was criminologist Guy Lamb. Thank you for your time this morning.